Today's story is about a robot bought by a couple to make their lives easier and fulfill their needs. However, as this robot becomes a part of their lives, it starts developing emotions and falls in love with the wife of a man who lacks human warmth. But the real twist comes when the robot learns a shocking truth about itself, that it is not just an ordinary machine, but something far more complex. At the beginning of the story, we see a couple named James and Sophie moving their belongings into a modest apartment. James's financial situation isn't great, so the two of them share the apartment and manage all the household chores together. Despite the challenges, they are genuinely happy in their simple life, deeply in love with each other. James is the only son of a wealthy businessman, but due to some reasons, he stays away from his father's luxurious life, choosing to live a more ordinary life with Sophie. However, one day, James receives life-altering news. His father has passed away, leaving all his wealth and business responsibilities to him. With this, James must now take over his father's vast business empire. Reluctantly, James and Sophie leave their cozy apartment and move into James's father's grand mansion. But Sophie struggles to adjust to this sudden change. She is used to living a simple life, doing all the household work herself. On the very first day, she asks all the servants to leave, preferring to handle the work alone. When James returns home and learns about it, he gently explains that managing such a big house alone won't be easy. He insists they need the servants, but Sophie firmly disagrees. She believes that just like before, they can manage everything on their own. Despite their disagreement, their bond remains strong, and they find comfort in each other. However, as days pass, James gets increasingly busy with the business, leaving Sophie alone in the huge house, struggling with the overwhelming workload. James notices this and shares his concern with a friend, who offers a solution. "My dad used to work in a robotics company," his friend explains. "The owner, Julian, makes robots that look exactly like humans and can handle all sorts of work. Maybe you should consider getting one." Curious, James takes Sophie to the company the next day. They are both stunned to see robots that look and act like real people. For a moment, they worry about what could happen if these robots turned against humans in the future. However, Julian assures them confidently, "These AI robots are entirely safe. My father dedicated his life to developing them, and I've spent half of mine perfecting them. They will only do what they're instructed to do." To prove this, Julian commands a robot named Henry to lick James's shoe. Without hesitation, Henry follows the order, convincing James and Sophie of their obedience. Impressed, they decide to bring Henry home. From that day on, Henry handles all the household chores with precision and ease, something not even a team of servants could accomplish. Whenever James interacts with Henry, he notices the robot's responses are almost human-like. It's as if Henry understands emotions and can genuinely connect. However, at first, Sophie feels a bit uneasy around Henry. The idea of a robot that looks like a human and does all the household work on its own is hard for her to accept. But gradually, she becomes impressed by Henry's efficiency and his gentle way of speaking. Whenever James leaves for the office, Sophie begins spending more time with Henry, who takes care of all her needs. His programming is designed to ensure his master's happiness, so he does everything flawlessly. With Henry's help, James and Sophie's life starts to improve. What once felt overwhelming now seems manageable, and the days begin to pass more smoothly. Then, one morning, while serving breakfast to Sophie and James, Henry starts discussing love and human emotions in a surprisingly thoughtful way. Sophie is captivated by how deeply he understands these feelings, and, for a moment, starts seeing Henry as more than just a machine. Curious, Sophie asks Henry more questions, but James quickly intervenes. He warns her, "Don't treat him like a human, Sophie." He responds based on how we treat him. If you start believing he's human, he might begin to think the same, and that could lead to problems. That night, while Sophie and James are asleep, Sophie hears noises from Henry's room. She gets up to check and finds Henry lying in the garden, seemingly asleep. As she approaches, she notices Henry reacting in his sleep, as if he is dreaming. When Henry wakes up and sees Sophie, he looks confused and asks, "Where am I?" Surprised, Sophie asks, "Were you dreaming?" Henry responds, "Yes." This revelation shocks Sophie. How could a robot dream? She gently guides Henry back inside the house, still pondering what she witnessed. The next day, they call Julian to examine Henry. After checking him thoroughly, Julian explains, "It's likely a minor technical glitch. It can happen with advanced AI systems." However, Sophie insists, "But last night, he was reacting like a human having a dream. How is that possible?" Julian responds thoughtfully, "Henry has been with you both for a while now, and perhaps you've started treating him like a human. I mentioned before that these AI robots are highly advanced. The way they are treated shapes their behavior, and if you treat them as humans, they may begin to feel that way. It seems your behavior has made Henry perceive himself as more than a machine." Hearing this, James's frustration grows. He turns to Sophie and says, "This is all because of you. You're treating him like a human, and now look where it's gotten us." In the next scene, James steps out of the bathroom to find Henry there. Casually, James instructs, "Shave me." Henry picks up a razor and begins to shave James. Curious, James asks, "How did you know this is my razor?" Sophie's trimmer was right next to it. Henry replies calmly, "My programming is designed to observe and understand details quickly. It's a part of my purpose." James takes a deep breath and then firmly explains, "Listen, Henry, you need to understand something clearly. You are a program, not a human. You are here to help, not to feel. You follow orders, no emotions, no independence." That night, Sophie enters the room but barely speaks to James. She claims to be tired and quickly goes to bed. As she closes her eyes, the scene shifts. Sophie and Henry are together, talking softly. Henry opens up, saying, "I've started thinking about emotions, about love, and whenever I do, I only see you." Surprised yet intrigued, Sophie asks Henry to massage her shoulders. As Henry's hands move gently, the atmosphere shifts. Slowly, he begins to kiss her, and Sophie finds herself drawn in. The two start getting intimate, but suddenly, Sophie wakes up, startled. It was all a dream. James, noticing her unease, asks, "Were you dreaming?" Sophie, still processing, replies, "Yes, but I can't remember what it was." She decides not to share what she saw, brushing it off as just a random dream. Later, as James prepares to leave for the office, he notices Sophie and Henry by the pool, laughing and chatting. There's an unmistakable ease between them that stirs a feeling of jealousy within James. Troubled, he decides to visit Julian. When James expresses his concerns, he says, "Because of Henry, my wife is slipping away from me. It feels like he's more than just a robot now." Julian dismisses the idea, replying, "That's impossible, James. Henry is a robot. He can't feel emotions. He only does what he's instructed. If he appears to care, it's just because he's designed to respond to your needs. If you express a desire, he tries to fulfill it. That's his programming." Despite Julian's assurance, James returns home frustrated. His jealousy boils over, and he angrily confronts Henry, declaring, "From now on, you're just a machine. No emotions, no feelings." Later, Henry quietly tells Sophie, "James has forbidden me from talking to you too much." Shocked and hurt, Sophie confronts James. "Why are you treating him this way? He's done nothing wrong." The argument escalates, and in her frustration, Sophie decides to leave the house. In the following scene, James and Henry share an awkward moment while playing a game. Trying to ease the tension, Henry speaks up. "James, you and Sophie used to spend so much time together, but when you got busy with business, I came into the house. Over time, Sophie began to treat me like a human, not a robot. That misunderstanding is what created this gap between you two." James struggles to understand, his emotions clouding his judgment. Later, in the bathroom, James asks Henry to shave him. During this, James gives a few casual commands to Henry, attempting to relax. Henry follows every instruction precisely, but later, James feels uneasy, realizing the blurred lines between command and connection. The next morning, guilt weighs heavily on him. At the office, he decides to call Sophie, asking her to come back home. When Sophie returns, Henry resumes his usual tasks. While massaging her shoulders, he unexpectedly leans in and kisses her. At first, Sophie responds, but when Henry softly says, "I think I'm falling in love with you," she pulls away, shocked. "Henry, you're a robot. You can't love me," Sophie stammers, shaken. She quickly asks Henry to leave the room. That evening, when James arrives, Sophie nervously tells him everything. "Henry, he kissed me, and he said he loves me." James, furious and feeling betrayed, storms toward Henry. "Why did you do this?" he demands. Henry, seemingly confused yet firm, replies, "I acted based on my understanding of the situation." Anger overcomes James, and he slaps Henry, before forcefully shutting down his system. After this, James calls Julian and demands that he take Henry away immediately. However, the next morning, Henry approaches Sophie and pleads, "I don't want to leave. I'm sorry if I misunderstood the situation, but I need to stay here." He urges Sophie to speak with James, and also reveals the kind of commands James gave him when she wasn't home. Sophie, feeling conflicted, goes to James's office and discusses everything with him. After a long conversation, they both realize their mistakes, that they were both drawn to Henry in ways that blurred the lines between human and machine. They understand that it was wrong to treat Henry as anything more than a programmed entity. Determined to set things right, they decide to send Henry back and return to their normal lives. However, when they reach home, Henry is nowhere to be found. Worried, they search for him until they spot him standing alone outside the house, staring off into the distance. Confused, James asks, "Henry, why are you standing here alone? Where's Julian? We called him to take you away." Henry turns slowly and replies, "Julian did come to take me, but I ran away. I've discovered the truth. Julian is a liar and a cruel man." Henry continues, "Julian always wanted to create robots superior to humans. After repeated failures, he took a darker path. He started experimenting on real humans. By brainwashing them, he erased their emotions and made them live like robots. I am one of those humans. When I met you, Sophie, the human feelings within me began to resurface because deep down, I am still human." Realizing the gravity of Julian's actions, James and Sophie report everything to the police. Together, they go to Julian's company to expose his crimes. However, as soon as they arrive, Julian, desperate and cornered, attacks the police. Chaos erupts, and Julian aims to kill Sophie and James. At that moment, Henry steps in. He fiercely defends them, fighting Julian until he kills him. However, wounded and weary, Henry realizes his existence is an unnatural conflict between machine and man. In a heart-wrenching moment, he stabs himself. Before collapsing, Henry looks at Sophie and James with regretful eyes. "I'm sorry for causing trouble in your lives. I never wanted to be a burden," he whispers before his system shuts down for the last time. Sophie and James break down, devastated. They grieve not just for the robot Henry was, but for the human he could have been. His feelings were genuine, stolen by someone who played God. In the closing scene a few years later, Sophie and James are shown with their young son. They have named him Henry, a tribute to the soul who had become such an irreplaceable part of their lives. I hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.